time that we get into that UEFA Champions League action. Hello, football lovers. Hello, Real Madrid fans. Hello, Arsenal fans. Hello, Arsenal sympathizers. Hello, Real Madrid sympathizers. Hello, well wishers, regardless of what section that you do fall under in regards to the two teams that are in action tonight. That's Real Madrid versus Arsenal. But do not forget, there's also another fixture between Inter Milan and FC Bayern Munich. But yes, the moment has come. The two sides are facing off in the return leg of this UEFA Champions League quarterfinal fixture. That's between Arsenal and Real Madrid. The starting 11s are out, and I want us to look at those and a couple of things that are making rounds as far as this particular fixture is concerned. And of course, we'll get the chance to look at the starting 11s from that game between Inter Milan and AFC Bayern Munich. So, as you guys settle in, as you guys tune in to the broadcast, we'll be reviewing some of the things that we do expect to get on tonight. Of course, we now know what the starting lineups look like. That's for as far as Arsenal and Real Madrid are concerned. And then for Inter and Bayern Munich, I think let's start with that of Inter Milan and FC Bayern Munich for the lineups there. So, like I said, I did not expect any changes whatsoever, or many changes in the starting 11 for Inter Milan. That was in our earlier broadcast earlier on today. And indeed, there are not so many changes. In fact, I do not see any, because it is Jan Sommer in goal. It is Benjamin Pavard, Francesco Akabi, and then Alessandro Bastoni in that back three. Then Matteo Damian as a wing back, and Federico Di Marco on the other side. Then Nico Barrera, Hakan Çalhanoğlu, and Henrik Mkhitaryan in that midfield. Of course, it sets up as a midfield of five. And then Marcus Thuram alongside Lautaro Martinez leading the lines. On the side of Bayern Munich, it's Jonas Ubing in goal, Kim Min-jae, Eric Dyer, Konrad Laimer, Josep Stanisic, and then Joshua Kimmich and Leon Goretzka. Pretty much what we expected. Again, not many changes here. And then Leroy Sané, Thomas Muller, Michael Olise, and Harry Kane to lead the line. So, for those of you that do remember, when we were having this discussion about this particular fixture briefly during our live broadcast today, we did talk about that. Personally, if I were to be basically comparing shoes, I'd be intentional on getting, Thomas Muller started in this particular fixture because of his experience and that kind of thing. And indeed, he's been given the chance to start this particular game, because in their last fixture, I did come off the bench to score what had been the equalizer in that game before Fratesi scored the winning goal. So that's that. And then on Real Madrid versus Arsenal, here are the starting 11s that are coming up tonight. The atmosphere around the Santiago Bernabeu has been electric from as early as possible. I was reading a report earlier on in the day that did say that while the game is at 9 p.m., that's for, Spanish time, fans were being expected to be around the stadium as early as 2-3 p.m. around that time, and then try to build that atmosphere going on. Susanna, hi, thank you for tuning to the broadcast. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. So, and they've been building to that moment. They've been playing all the mind games. They've been creating that environment that sort of gives their team the advantage psychologically, mentally, and everything that there is that you can think of in the game of football. So here is Carlo Ancelotti's starting 11 for this particular fixture. It is Thibaut Courtois in goal, Lucas Vazquez, who is also the captain, they are starting at right back, Raul Asensio alongside Antonio Rudiger in that centre back pairing. Yes, Susanna, thank you for subscribing. Much appreciated. Raul Asensio and Antonio Rudiger in that centre back pairing, as well as David Alaba at left back. Then it's a midfield of three. Again, pretty much that's what we predicted in our earlier broadcast when we were previewing this game. That's the kind of backline that we did predict. And the contention was that maybe Fran Garcia would start at left back as opposed to David Alaba. But then I also mentioned that you wouldn't be surprised if David Alaba started this particular game because he offers so much to Real Madrid going forward offensively. Yes, thank you, Susanna, for the like as well. So he offers so much at Real Madrid offensively when he's attacking those lines on the left flank. And he could give you that cross. He has that strong left foot, and he can even take on a couple of players in a good moment. Of course, he would have to, whatever he does offensively, he would also have to compensate well defensively on those duties, because also Bukayo Saka won't let him rest. He will be giving him a bit of a hard time, pretty much like he did in the first leg. So, and then in midfield, it's Federico Valverde, Aurelio Tchouameni, and Jude Bellingham. Once again, pretty much what we predicted. In the absence of Eduardo Camavinga, who is suspended following his red card that he suffered in the first leg. And then, of course, being that Lucas Vazquez has started at right back, where Valverde started in the first leg fixture, this is a pretty strong midfield from Real Madrid. First of all, it gives them a bit of balance and stability with that sort of double pivot for Tchouameni and Federico Valverde. And then we all know Fede Valverde is a box player, pretty much the same way Jude Bellingham. So Jude Bellingham is going to be at the tip of that double pivot of the midfield three. And then the front three, again, is unchanged. Remember, Bellingham was rested for the weekend. He didn't start that game against Deportivo La Coruña, while Kylian Mbappe, who scored that goal that won them the game by 0-0, was given a red card in that particular fixture. Vinicius Junior didn't start that game, and he is here. They're all three of them here to start this one. So it's Rodrigo Goes, Kylian Mbappe, and Vinicius Junior that will be attacking Arsenal to try and cause the upset, to try and cause the comeback that they really intend to achieve tonight. In the closed roof at Santiago Bernabeu. Of course, Fran Garcia is on the bench. Dani Ceballos, a former, he did play for Arsenal on loan during Mikel Arteta's early days at Arsenal. Brahim Diaz is on the bench. Adagula is on the bench. Endrick is also on the bench. And Luka Modric with all his experience. So, again, pretty much things that we did really expect, things that we did discuss earlier on in the day in respect to that live broadcast that we had in the preview of this game and that game of Inter Milan. So then, of course, switching on to the Arsenal side, their starting 11 again is unchanged from what we saw in the first leg when they were able to overcome Real Madrid by 3-0. Declan Rice with that double free kick, goal scoring, and as well as Mikel Merino with the third goal. So it's David Raya in goal, Julian Timber at right back, Miles Lewis Kelly at left back, William Saliba alongside Jakub Kivio in that centre back pairing, and then the midfield of Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, and Martin Odegaard. And then, of course, in the front three, you have Gabriel Martinelli, you have Bukayo Saka, you do have Mikel Merino in that setup. On the bench, they do have Neto, then they do have Setford, they have Kian Tierney, they have Ben White. Fortunately, he's been able to make the bench. They do have Alexander Zinchenko, Leandro Trossard, Raheem Sterling, Butler. Then they have Goa, Henry Francis, and then Ethan Nwaneri, as well as Rosiak. Yeah, that's to complete Arsenal's, match day squad or bench, as well as the starting 11. So the nerves have started to kick in for most fans, especially Arsenal fans, and I'm sure Real Madrid fans are equally as nervous. Like I said during the day, it's going to be a nail-biting fixture. Every minute is going to count. Every tackle might be celebrated. Every duel, every clearance, every set piece won, all these are moments going to be celebrated depending on how the game goes. The first 10 minutes will be very crucial, just as much as the 10 minutes after that, because if you're Arsenal, you do not want to concede in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes. You wouldn't want to concede because then that would sort of really, really motivate Real Madrid to sort of go for it. And they are very capable with that front three of Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Goes, who combined, three of them have a combined, squad 19 goals out of the 28 that Real Madrid have scored in the competition. Arsenal themselves have also scored as many as 28 goals. They've only conceded 6 goals up until this stage of the competition, while Real Madrid, I think, have conceded as many as 20 and that kind of thing. So it's going to be Navi. Of course, Real Madrid are going to look on to exploit on weak points that we did discuss again earlier on in the day. Miles Lewis Kelly was very, very good in the first leg, but the double free kick scoring of Declan Rice, Miles Lewis Kelly would have easily gone down as the man of the match in that game, just as much as Thomas Partey in that midfield again. So, but it was a very perfect day for Arsenal players. So really, all of them have turned it up to on top of their game. So Arsenal will, because of his inexperience in Miles Lewis Kelly, like we discussed, sometimes he rushes into tackles and challenges and that kind of things. So he's vulnerable to making, sometimes silly fouls or kiddish fouls. So they will look to target him. That's, I think, Rodrigo Goes. Kylian Mbappe will to, outrun them in the first leg on 2 occasions. Unfortunately for him, he was unable to, convert in one occasion, having a one-on-one or a goalkeeper to beat with David Raya, and David Raya came to the rescue of Arsenal at the time. And I kept on saying, had he scored that chance, maybe we would have had an entirely different game on that night. But that's all for history's sake. And then, of course, Jakub Kivio is the other player who we all know is not a mainstay in that starting lineup. He's only come in following that hamstring injury to Gabriel Magalhaes that has ruled him out for the rest of the season, and clearly he's had to chip in, and so far he's done pretty well. So those are some of the weak links that they will look to exploit, and of course Arsenal's idea of wanting to build from the back, sometimes it exposes them. Then they also play with a very high line, and I remember, I think, tweeting during that particular fixture in the first leg saying Arsenal will need to, one, be careful with the high line with which they usually play with. Usually you have their center back pairing as high as the center line and sometimes beyond. And then when they go for set pieces, they ought to remember that Real Madrid have very, very fast players in Kylian Mbappe, in Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo Goes, pretty much players that can outrun almost that Arsenal squad. So they would have to be mindful of how they set up when they go for such moments or in their entire play overall, so that they do not leave themselves really so much vulnerable to that. So guys, do let me know what your thoughts are. I see Susanna is asking, what are you doing? We're looking at a preview of that big fixture between Real Madrid and Arsenal that is coming your way. I'm looking to let's see what's out there in terms of the information, what people are saying about the fixture. The source being X there. I'm trying to get a couple of things here. Of course, there's been a lot of banter. Some people speculating Arsenal will park the bus, that they will play with a very low block and try to defend. But Mikel Arteta didn't make allude to any suggestions that would be the case. And in many cases, they did say they want to forget everything that happened in the first leg and play like the game is, like the tie is just starting all too well. Then, so here is Piers Morgan with 2 facts. Real Madrid are the most successful football club in history. They've never beaten Arsenal. So those are 2 facts for him. And then I think he relates to that 2005-2006 season triumph in which Arsenal, it was a goalless draw at the Highbury, and then when they went to the Santiago Bernabeu, of course, Arsenal, kind of fought it out and won by a goal to nil. Thierry Henry scoring that only goal for that fixture. Then let me see what's there to see in terms of what are fans saying about this particular fixture. Of course, most of them are discussing the starting 11 from both sides. Bukayo Saka early goal to kill the Real Madrid hope is exactly what we need. We will be here. That's now.arsenal on X. Indeed, if Arsenal were to score an early goal, or if they were to be the first to score in the tie, pretty much again that will cause a bit of tension or a bit of panic, a bit of uneasiness to the Real Madrid side and whatever game plan that they may have. Then this is a quote from 2 hours ago from Arsenal quoting David Raya, because he was the one that sat in with manager Mikel Arteta for that pre-match press conference. We are here just to create our own history. David Raya, that's what he had to say in the build-up to this particular fixture. Still about more comments. Most of them, the ones I'm skipping are from so many hours ago, but this is from an hour ago from Leo da Silva. He says this last week should prove to Arsenal fans that we are a massive club, the most massive one in actual fact. Champions League or not, we have made the most successful club run every sort of PR to prove how massive they are. Do not get drawn into the small club banter with trolls. I think he was issuing out a warning to the Arsenal fans. And then I see somebody called Sos Gerard says seeing the team arrive on the Arsenal IG page, naye akasajja katimba kavawa. That's in Uganda. He's wondering where they got Timber from. Of course, they did sign him from Ajax. Pretty much everybody knows that. But that's some of the reaction that you're having online in regards to today's fixture. This was a tweet from ESPN saying Real Madrid received a royal welcome from their fans outside the Bernabeu ahead of their Champions League second leg quarterfinal against Arsenal. Pretty much what we spoke about, the kind of environment their fans were trying to create for their team, to inspire them, to motivate them to really go out and kill Arsenal and knock them out of this tie, despite Arsenal leading the tie by 3-0 from that first leg aggregate. Mazrou Skelly is one of the only 3 players aged 18 to start a knockout stage game match away to Real Madrid in the UEFA Champions League after Cesc Fabregas in February 2006 and Max Meyer in March 2014. That was for Schalke 04. And that kind of thing. So that's some of the banter. That's some of what's making rounds on your socials. Do let me know what your predictions are. Earlier on, I gave you what my predictions were, and I said Arsenal, unfortunately, may lose this one by 2-1, but I do expect them to advance to the semi-finals. Of course, I could be wrong because the game is big. It can go either way. Stay blessed for now. Enjoy as you watch. Bye-bye.